One of the most powerful tools you will come across for ComfyUI is Photomaker V2. It is now available for ComfyUI, originally released for Gradio interface. You can find it in tools supplied on the Tenant Arc Photomaker page. Here, related resources which will give us the ComfyUI Photomaker V2 resources. The one I found that is working currently is the Shimizu workflow, and to run it you need to refer to my previous video on Insight Face installation. This time on Linux I've shown how to get Insight Face running successfully with overcoming some common pitfalls and issues in that process on my other video. So you'll have to, subscribe and check out all the videos regarding that prerequisite where we get this workflow running on a basic level in that video. So we need to follow that and install the custom nodes after installing Insight Face, get everything running. There are some issues that you're not thinking of that will hit and overcome in that video, and that gets us to have the Photomaker nodes and to have the Insight Face working with this Insight Face loader not failing because we have properly installed Insight Face already. And I really want to use this for educational purposes, as in this video that I'm making for myself, to dissect this workflow and understand it on the best level. In particular, the confusing part, once you're even understanding, it's loading in the models here. We'll go into all that and dissect it in a second. But which conditioning is it passing on? Is it the Photomaker encode plus conditioning, or conditioning from this clip text encode? Different stages of this are past different encoding and such, and it's handled differently, which is allowing it to give conditioning that supplies it with the face data, and it is also giving data for the rest of the prompt. And those two things are being handled differently by different nodes. The Photomaker encode plus node is taking in the Photomaker model Insight Face and doing that conditioning modification. As you can see, it's outputting conditioning based on Photomaker, Insight Face, the images we give it, the clip text encoding, and it's giving conditioning into these samplers. That's part of how this workflow is working right now. So that is like the key aspect. And what I do when I dissect workflows, everything is all neat here, lined up nice. That's good. Once you have an idea of what's going on and you just want it clean and so you can operate it, that's fine. But you can't see the order in which these nodes are being run how they interact and all very easily, because the connections are not obvious. They're covered up by the nodes. When they're all aligned this way, the connections aren't able to be seen. So you have to go drag it all like this, and find how visually you can make the connections more obvious and see left to right, up to down, uh, or however it fits on your page. But you want to be able to see how it flows, the workflow flows. So we can see this is the load checkpoint, where you want to load any SDXL, in particular checkpoint.safetensors model file. That's the base model that will generate the main bulk of the image. You'll use the Photomaker model to do the faces in particular, and it will give us more control, and we'll have just way better faces. If you're making any kind of artwork, the face is really the focal point usually. If you have a subject with a face, human, not human. So you are going to have the photomaker-v2.bin file in the ComfyUI directory. For models, you want to be in the new Photomaker directory. I think ComfyUI now has it by default. Sometimes you will have to make a new folder, such as when I installed Insight Face, IP adapter, and such. Sometimes you need to create your own directory in the models directory. That's okay. It's designed to run that way. And that's just generally for this stable diffusion in ComfyUI tip. So we have the base checkpoint. You can put that at the top left as a primary. I put on the top left all the loading checkpoints and loading models as like a load a module area to organize and segregated from the rest of the workflow right now. And we're going to do this one at a time to understand what's going on. This is the low range adaptation model loader, and I think we can use that to load the Photomaker LoRa, and we can also have our own LoRas by using the load LoRa node. We can chain that node. I put 3 in a chain and daisy chain them straight away, just because it's easiest. But we'll continue with just the default workflow here. Load VAE is another loading aspect, and so we'll put that up there next. And so we can see this clip text encoding, positive and negative, green and red. Are taking input from the apply Photomaker style node here, which is taking primitives. We can now see one step at a time it's coming together. I didn't even plan any of this out. We're just taking a live look at how this works. What goes on here is the apply Photomaker style is an important node, it will modify your prompt and add a few tags or words to the prompt to modify it to these different styles like neon punk, fantasy art, cinematic and photographic, etc. And the string function here of this custom script is one place this positive conditioning with the style modified conditioning goes to. This custom string function strips out, replaces the word image, img. That word has to be in the prompt that you give the Photomaker itself, but we don't want that passed to the rest of the conditioning in the samplers and stuff. So I have found this aspect is a replace of the word img with nothing, so that it's stripping that img string, replacing it with a blank string. And there's an empty latent image. This goes over with our loading and such. And you have to just keep messing with your layout as you go, refactoring it. So I have these basic loaders. Then I have the Photomaker loading and LoRa loader. And then next, left to right, up to down, it's going to go on a diagonal here, I guess. And you can see this positive is going to two different places, which is what I was talking about. One is going to get the full Photomaker prompt string for the conditioning, and one is getting stripped of this img. So when you get confused of what this string function is, the custom script string function, it's to replace img. And we next have Photomaker encode. Now this is an essential node. All these loaders and such are mainly going into the Photomaker encode plus node. You can modify the trigger word. If you did that, you want to modify the string function img here, and have a different trigger word in the prompt. But we'll leave that at default. It's fine. And this workflow has 3 images that are generated when you hit Q and run the prompt. That has this basic K sampler, which will generate the most basic image, basically without the full prompt, that generates just the face. And you want to have permission to use your faces. Don't use faces without permission. There are ethical. I want to show you the quality of the images we're going to get before we go any further. I could have done that at the start, I guess. Let's hit Q and see this workflow in action. It has cropped the faces I gave it here. And we're seeing if it runs, which we're having a mistake. We need to have the VAE hooked up to the baked VAE to get started, or have a VAE file for SDXL 0.9 version. I recommend VAE version. This should run now. It's going to generate this image. See, it's a very high quality image. The face is much more detailed than you usually get without Photomaker. And it's following the prompt, giving us the Iron Man suit in good detail. In particular, with the merge model, it just produces great results if you're doing everything right. Here's the different image sampling method result, and you can have different strengths of the style, having it be more unstyled or more stylized image, depending on either the steps or the decimal you give that determine basically the point where it's getting switching from noising to denoising in a way, because it's keeping the total steps the same, but denoising up to a point after having been noised, relative to the style strength ratios, where it is being switched from noising to denoising at a certain point, and that's determining the style strength. You use a different method for the two because this takes decimal input that you give the denoising, and this is working with steps. So this has a style strength start and end step. This has a style strength ratio given by a decimal to be in line with the rest of the sampler. Which sampling does this take into account? This second method, we've looked at the first method and seen it gives the first sampler one conditioning, the second sampler another conditioning. One is from this Photomaker encode plus, the other is just from the prompt, I believe. With the IMG string removed, you could also have a separate prompt box and eliminate that aspect and not give the second prompt the image word, or you could just have it pass the image word, IMG trigger word, and hope it doesn't screw your result up to have that in the conditioning. So this takes those two conditionings, combines them using a node, it seems, giving one conditioning the end, one conditioning the start, so that you start at 0, go to 1, and this is impacted by the style strength ratio. Point being, they're combined in this node and passed to the sampler that way, whereas this method has two sets of conditioning, not combining them with that node, by passing one to the first sampler, the other to the second sampler, and they have more rationality behind all of that than this, you know. But we're not going to look at the uh, underlying mechanics of Photomaker right now any deeper than we've already got. You know, it's using the trigger word, it's modifying conditioning based on additional neural networks, it's still taking in the base model, SDXL base models, any one you want, and it's using the Photomaker low range adaptation model, passing that modified model to the K samplers, which are using the modified conditioning to generate the face we provide it. Multiple faces. You can blend faces to create your ultimate artwork. And that's a good overview of Photomaker and what it can do, how it's running, some inner workings, and dissecting it. I'm running it again right now for us. And there we go. You can now proceed to attempt integrating control nets with this and see what you get if you give it a pose and have the face under control as well. That seems like a powerful tool, right? I'm almost scared to share that with you all. It does work. You can integrate control nets with Photomaker V2 workflows. This has been Alien Machine AI. I hope this is of use. Please be careful with this. Do not abuse. Thanks a lot for watching, and stay tuned for more. Here is an optimized workflow I just created, basically integrating what I've done in my SDXL basic workflow video in some ways with the Photomaker workflow that we've been covering here. For instance, adding this JPS nodes of SDXL resolution calculator to supply the empty latent image with different resolutions, so we can make a 16:9 image. I'm running a 16:9 image for us, but while that runs, I want to show you the clip text encode SDXL box, which is also something I added on my own rather than the standard clip text encode boxes. I use these when I'm using SDXL, which require you to provide width, height, target height for each. And I use the JPS SDXL resolutions node values for both the empty latent image as well as piping that over to the clip text encode SDXL nodes. And I have efficiency nodes rather than the standard Comfy basic core nodes for the K sampler advanced. I'm using the efficiency nodes. It just adds some features. Basically, you can do it either way. And you can see I was able to get a image that's widescreen You see some artifact there. I think because it was trying to sample in the glasses with the noise, and then when it denoised it, it tried to remove the glasses, and maybe that is why it has that artifact. Let's see if it goes away with a new noise seed. Oh, it's fixed. You can change the oh no, this is the style strength start and end, so you want that fixed. Seed you want to randomize. Control after generate randomize so that you get new images. And I just finished this workflow. It's not fully optimized, but I've integrated my basic SDXL modifications to this, made it more lightweight, and I want to next continue expanding this with some control net. So I just wanted to share this before I go. The modified boilerplate workflow for Photomaker V2 on ComfyUI. And one other thing I've added is this chain of load low range adaptation models. I keep 3 because that way you can add more without thinking about it. Just swapping this middle one and connecting the daisy chain, it's easy. If you just add 3, it makes it easy later. And you can right click and bypass. Right now they're bypassed. Well, thanks.